Hello, all crypto enthusiasts and newcomers, and welcome to Canadian Corner, where we discuss the how and why of the emerging crypto world with a slight perspective on the future of where this new space is going. To kick off this new channel, we'll be getting into the importance of digital assets going forward and why we are still in the toddler, perhaps cryptoddler, stage of the game. This is, of course, changing through increased use cases and the growing demand for content creators both in text and on YouTube, but for the most part, the understanding and the majority of this population are still not hip to the news on blockchain and how it is changing business, commerce, and of course the notion of currency itself. To realize the rise of interest in this field is to go back to the collapse of the markets in 2008 when a group of nonconformists had a decentralized vision of how assets should be managed. As such, rather than having all of us swallow the pill of complacency and trust in a central controlling interest in the monetary supply, the concept of self-reliance or be your own bank was the solution which ushered in the first digital currency, which we all know today as Bitcoin. Realizing that some of you who are listening are invested in a myriad of projects with various tokens, none of this would be possible without the rise of Bitcoin, which was the first, and time of this writing, the dominant digital currency as reported by CoinMarketCap.com. The platform powering this currency is the blockchain, which is the ledger or check and balance system which ensures all of the swapping of digital value works and works well. I won't get into the technical breakdown of how the blockchain works in detail, but for those who are interested in this space, have a look at the links in the description of this video. And suffice it to say that blockchain is the vehicle while the currency itself, i.e. Bitcoin or XRP, is the fuel that powers it. And while blockchain is a foundation, there are many blockchains supporting many tokens or digital assets. To give a clear indication of why this will change the way we all operate is to give a simple assessment of how physical assets are traded today compared to the promise of where this is going next. We all love to look at before and after comparisons, so let's look at the same analogy as it pertains to the blockchain using a transfer of traditional dollars from, let's say, Canadian dollars to the US equivalent on the blockchain to see how the equivalent transfer of tokens works. To look at accomplishing this task in today's world is not that different than how it was done decades ago, and involves a few steps to complete or settle on the receiving end. Using the example of a bank, the first thing you would need to do is gather all the recipient's bank transfer information, which includes a complete address, banking number, transfer number, and the institution's SWIFT code. Knowing this information is critical to ensuring your funds are successfully transferred, and if any portion of this information is missing, your funds may be returned or perhaps lost altogether. Moving to the next stage, once you have verified this information, you would then physically walk into your local financial institution and issue a money transfer to the teller. And the teller would then ask for all of the transfer information and issue your receipt. Once initiated, the processing time can take a few days to a few weeks depending on the speed and bureaucracy of the sending and receiving banks. Once within the system, it works the majority of the time, but just because it works doesn't mean it can't be improved. Mostly within the time of settlement within transfer, which is prone to both errors and fluctuations in exchange rates. How much better it would be if sending currency could be transacted the same way as sending an email. This is where the concept of the digital asset comes into play, allowing us to leverage the blockchain to transfer money over IP in the same fashion that we currently transfer information over IP. Using the example of the digital token XRP, the sender would instead issue the amount to a single destination address and in seconds have the funds transferred. To give an example, consider the transaction that occurred in July of 2016 when ATB Financial in Canada made a cross-border payment to ReiseBank in Germany. The company Ripple, which facilitated the transaction, utilized a modern foundation of transferring the currency by converting from Canadian dollars to XRP and then converting back from XRP to German marks on the receiving end. The entire process took approximately 8 seconds to not only transfer but settle, which is an order of magnitude compared to the current status quo. This was documented in real time using a smartphone, and you can visit the link in the description to see how this was all done. Since that time, the speed has reduced even further with a more recent example of a $50 million transaction that was done from Michael Arrington, which took about 3 seconds to clear with a total transaction fee of about 25 cents. Now let's ponder on that last point for a bit. 25 cents to send a $50 million US order, just like sending an email. This is basically the definition of the term game changer, folks. This is not just a white paper or utopian concept. This actually occurred, meaning that the technology is available today. Why aren't more people aware of this? Well, there are a lot of reasons why, but I believe one of the main ones is because the majority of us are simply just not aware of its existence and are not educated on the promise of what the blockchain can provide. The transfer of money using XRP is, of course, one such example, but many other use cases are either being trialed or already being used today, with various use cases from video games developed and played on the blockchain and even real estate. For those of us who are holders of digital assets such as XRP, we are well aware of how bright the future is based on research and real-world partnerships with companies who are making large bets into this new space. And for those of us who are curious or perhaps heard the term digital asset but not sure where to go for information, there are plenty of great sources of info to get you up to speed in a hurry. In the case of XRP, Hodor is a great place to start with many articles detailing the XRP token and the company Ripple from soup to nuts. On YouTube, Alex Cobb, digital asset investors, CKJ, and others in the description of this video provide a rich amount of detail on all things XRP, while a general smattering of various other tokens can be found on Crypto Zombies channel as well as the Crypto Lark, some of which I've never even heard of myself. Many other channels, blogs, and discussion groups are available by simply following the links, and based on your interest, it will not take you too long until you curate a listing of go-to sources in your quest for knowledge of the crypto space. In capping off this inaugural clip, a final note to keep in mind is that this is an emerging and bleeding edge affair, and with great excitement of what is to come comes also an equal dose of common sense. So please pay heed in doing your own investigation, as this will help give you a more clear and richer understanding of the space. Until next time, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you later on down the trail.